Hello, today I'm starting a new series on Jupiter through the houses. So I'm going to go through Jupiter's, because obviously it's the most benevolent of all planets. So I'm going to go through all the indications just so that we can learn a little bit more about it. And then we go through for the different ascendants. And so Jupiter is obviously Jiva Karaka, the very first thing, and that is the planet of vitality and life, basically. So it's the most benefic of all planets, and the ruler of the natural ninth and 12th house of the zodiac. So Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. They're completely different there in their feeling. Jupiter in the ninth house will be more for pilgrimage, education, higher education, doctorates, master's degrees, justice, law, culture. It's a trinal house, and it's all those kind of Sagittarius, much more focused, much more preaching, religious, knowledgeable, and high wisdom. In Pisces, it's much more optimistic, much more letting go, much more to do with the vision of the bigger picture, making things very spiritual, and travel. Both of them actually has of travel, both ninth and 12th house. Ninth house is obviously more like pilgrimage, where you go and come back. So you might go either for religious reasons or for education when it's activated, and you will return home. And so let's have a look at the kind of things to do with that. It's obviously a planet of morals, courtesy, and devotion. And it's open-minded, spiritual. And Jupiter is also the significator of natural houses, second house, fifth, ninth and 11th house of the zodiac. So by that I mean that it rules house of family, wealth, values, opportunities, children, obviously, with fifth house and everything, luck, happiness, growth, education, travel, and knowledge. It's the significator of teachers and role models that we attract, people who guide us through life, and help us to actually put us on our path, our dharma, and give us knowledge and higher knowledge. It's also the significator of children, which is our most creative part of a human being, and is obviously creations and being creative, and all of that is very massive part of human life, really. It's also like when we got a really good fifth house, all things to do with the fifth house are really magical to us. It's so creative, and it's so willing to be self-sacrificing and devotional towards our child. It's very romantic. It's really rules like the physical heart, like Leo, that kind of thing. So it's just pretty outstanding, really. And they are like our biggest blessings of life, and our commitments to them is highly vibrational in the biggest scheme of things. So the energy we put into them help us increase the strength of our fifth house. It's also the significator of husband material. So a woman can be, or a man can, attraction will be like Mars. Obviously Venus for heterosexuals, the more gay couples Mars is still the attraction. But Mars obviously what we'll be attracted to, but Jupiter will be the husband material. So it's very different when a woman chooses to set up home with somebody than somebody who is just like looking good, just like thinking, are they going to be reliable when I have be set up home and have children. So Jupiter will, a really good Jupiter in somebody's female's chart will indicate that they want to have a partner for life, so they can bring and support their child, be very committed to the family. Jupiter rules the northeast of properties, generally speaking, in Vastu, and it's the condition of the chart. It shows the optimism and happiness of the person. So whether or not somebody can look at their situation like glass half full or glass half empty, and that's how their approach to life is really. So, but the good thing is, obviously, even if you have got a difficult Jupiter in your chart, with transits, we always get, even if it's not a good planet for you, I think it's much more blissful when it's in transit. And also with different dashas, it kind of really helps to activate that that Jupiter for the better. Excuse me, they're just checking my internet. So obviously the planet of opportunities, wherever it goes in the chart, you have that premise there of opportunities and situations occurring that the Jupiter will help you achieve, so you can tap into that. Jupiter is friendly with the Sun, Moon, Mars and Ketu. It's enemies with Mercury and Venus, and neutral towards Saturn. It spends roughly about a year in any sign, but it does retrograde back too during that time. But generally speaking, it takes 12 years to go around your chart, so 12-year cycle. So when you have a Jupiter return, that is 12 years have gone by. And it's a sign that allows you to explore the indications of the house and gives you opportunities, with its transits. It's exalted in Cancer at 5 degrees, the home of family, early education, nurture and stability, and love of homeland. It's debilitated at 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is sign of strive, climbing the ladder, ambition, government structure, and wanting more and more. And Motrikona is Sagittarius, 0 to 10 degrees in Mula Nakshatra, where you get to the bottom of things, build yourself a really firm foundation, and then build on that. That's what really Jupiter is best at, really. Just like, it's not a credit card, it is to do with wealth, but it's not a credit card type of wealth. It's not like Rahu. It's a type of money that gives you pleasure. So it's not necessarily always like extravagant in that sense. It's very much like build really good foundations and then have the focus, and having focus for that because of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a planet that gives you the big picture, philosophy, travel, culture and luck, happiness and wisdom, religion and spiritualities and other realms, charity. And because it's exalted in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, charity begins at home and a homeland first, and that will make you really happy. And women, especially mothers who are mothering a child, nursing a child. In Sagittarius, as I said, is focused and righteous, preaching and committed to goal-oriented and religious. In Pisces, it's open-minded, big-hearted, creative, more forgiving, bigger picture, and more spiritual rather than religious. Okay, so wherever it's kind of wherever it sits in your chart, it kind of protects that house and protects 7 houses from it by aspect, but it's got special aspects, 5th and 9th house, so a trinal one as well. So 5th house is from it. You also include the house that's sitting in. So if it's in your 1st house, aspects the 5th, 7th and 9th house. Gets directional strength in the 1st house. It's obviously in the, you can imagine it's high consciousness and high awareness spirituality, happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's also, when it's in good condition, it can be really open-minded and tolerant, forward-looking, forward-thinking, positive and optimistic. Makes a fantastic advisor. All of these things that I'm saying, if it's in good condition, helps to move you forward. It kind of rules bankers, financiers, economists, judges, lawyers, generals. What else can I say about it? Spiritual advisors, professors, teachers, those kind of jobs, and justice. And it's also obviously rules justice, law, morals, ethics, universal law, social justice, and also it can be very idealistic and moralistic as well, because it is, you'll find that no planet is 100% brilliant, really, so there's always things going on. It is planet of joy and expansion, so the transit of that can have similar effects. Expansion, particularly if it's in the first house or aspect in the first house, but definitely, it's a first house. So respect and tolerance, affluence is all the other things that you can say about it. It rules fat, liver, high cholesterol, and edema when you actually get water retention. It rules Thursdays, color yellow or mustard, and it also rules yellowy kind of diamonds and citron gems as well. Obviously it rules Thursdays. It's debilitated, we said, in Capricorn at 5 degrees, but it's also it's not happy in Mercury signs. Mercury and Jupiter together, because they're both planets of teaching, learning, I should say, really, because obviously Jupiter is planet of very much to do with learning and publishing, because of the 9th house. Mercury is very much like information. Mercury can be gossipy, and fast information. But whereas like Jupiter is more like wisdom and high knowledge, that kind of thing. So this is the reason why it feels a little bit nervous in those sort of, it can be a little bit like, because obviously it expands everything, and Mercury can be very sort of multi-talented. It can like give you too much of everything, so it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's why it creates problems when it's in Mercury and nakshatras, Mercury signs, being aspected with Mercury or conjunct with Mercury, because it's just like so much information, whereas like the focus goes out of Jupiter and becomes too much into everything. And obviously because it's a planet of judgment as well, so it can be a bit judgmental about those things. So I find that, like if you it almost creates problems with learning, actually. So like for example, Jupiter in Purva Bhadrapada can be like it finds it really difficult sometimes learning, but but it could be that it's much more of like a visual learner rather than theoretical, because it kind of overdoes things, and the person could be like constantly wanting to learn, and particularly in certain nakshatras and things like that, it can really give you that like, oh, I want to learn so much, but you don't really absorb the information. It's just about going through it, but not necessarily absorbing the information or application of the information. Obviously not friendly with Libra, because they're both planets benefics, but Jupiter is much more like discerning. It's kind of what it is actually. Jupiter is much more it's a little bit judgmental, whereas Venus is not judgmental. It's a teacher to everybody. It's not going to judge you in a sense that you think, oh, you come from a poor background, you come from, that kind of, your family's got money or anything like that, or maybe your family's religious or atheist. Whereas Jupiter can be a little bit more choosy about who they actually spend their time with. So you can definitely see that. Jupiter and Venus are quite an interesting one as well. So Jupiter, Venus, or Jupiter in Venus houses, it can give dissatisfaction as well, because there's always like, oh, I could, particularly in love, because Venus is planet of love. So with Venus, it can just get like, oh, it can be like, the person could be a really, really nice guy or nice lady, and they're just like, oh no, but they just did that wrong. They could be a little bit like that too. So yeah, it's interesting. So we need to like rein it in a sense. If Jupiter is in the fourth house as well, so it gives you luxurious homes and luxurious cars and things like that, because wherever it is, it's bigger than normal. That's definitely the focus. So these are the things to do with Jupiter. As I said, it's got directional strength in the first house, so it gives the person much more focus, a jovial personality, and fun to be with. I have an uncle of mine. I don't know his chart, but I can bet you bottom dollar that he has got Jupiter in the first house, because he's always struggled with his weight, and he is quite expansive. Midriff region, and he's just very fun to be with. He's just got that lovely, I wouldn't say, because sense of humor is much more to do with Mercury, but it's just the happiness, sharing, and whenever we used to go out, as a family and everything, we would stop more often than normal to eat or drink something, and he wants everybody to have fun. So that is very much Jupiter. And I think I did say, but it does rule, Jupiter rules Thursdays. So Jupiter, obviously, just wanted to say that we all get to have a go at Jupiter in the first house at some point, hopefully, if the dashas line up, Mahadasha's planetary periods occur. And definitely in transits too. So there's this. So, but also have a look at other Vargas or divisional charts. In Vedic astrology, there are plenty of them. And have a look and see what condition your Jupiter is in different Vargas. And obviously, if Jupiter, you're going through a Jupiter dasha or subdasha, but particularly if you're going to the main Mahadasha of Jupiter, you can have a look and see in different Vargas if it is in the ascendant of any of those, because they also get activated with that too. It rules 3 nakshatras, Purnavasu, which is Jupiter nakshatras are always between two signs. So it's between Gemini and the first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. So last 10 degrees of Gemini, 20 to 30 degrees, and first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. And then also the last 10 degrees of Libra, and the first 3 degrees 20 of Scorpio. So that's Libra and Scorpio. And then also rules last 10 degrees, and that nakshatra in between Libra and Scorpio is called Vishaka. And then we have also Purva Bhadrapada, which is the last 10 degrees, so 20 degrees to 30 degrees of Aquarius, and first 3 degrees 20 of Pisces. So these are the 3 nakshatras. So with the dasha, those 3 nakshatras will get activated. And so what else do I want to say? Yeah, so just remember that, so we all get a little bit of a go at, during those dashas. And also, just wanted to also say that everything that I'm saying is for a Jupiter that has got, I'm not considering any kind of conjunctions or aspects, just purely the house placements. Jupiter in 11th house, and this is obviously a Jupiter with no aspects or conjunctions. And this is obviously 11th house means that Jupiter will be activating the desire houses, the Kama houses, Kama trichones. So there'll be 3rd and 7th house, and it's also aspect in the 5th house. So obviously, depending on whether or not this is a good planet for you and its position is going to give you different fruits. But this is obviously, Jupiter is planet of opportunities, and it's also the significator of the 11th house. So sometimes when, we normally find that Jupiter, when it is in houses that it's also Karaka for, significator for, it can kind of make him a bit difficult in those houses. However, 11th house is not so bad because also it's an upachaya house. It does get better with time, so it kind of bestows the what do you call it, the opportunities, and they're more long term, that kind of thing. So this is obviously will be a very desire-based Jupiter. Jupiter obviously expands everything. So these people have got lots of desires. They've got lots of desires in terms of friends, in terms of hobbies. They want to have lots of hobbies. They want to have, they're very, you know, they want to be married and have a lovely partner. They also really love their groups of friends. They want to have a child. So all of those things that is activated by Jupiter, it's what they want. And why not? You can work towards them, and as and when the dashas and the transits are lining up, you can get your heart's desires met. So Jupiter from there obviously is Jupiter that is very obviously the groups of their friends, and everything else is very important to them. So they're probably likely to have lots of friends, and they will have lots of interest because it's aspect in the third house, and it's even more powerful. It gives you more opportunities to have friends, make friends, have interest. These people, you will find that they could have lots of groups, lots of different types of friends. So they could just have friends that they do, like they go to cinema with, they have friends that they go walking with, they have friends that they exercise with, they have friends that they travel with. So they got loads of different friends, they got loads of hobbies, and definitely does really kind of makes them be very involved with so many different things. It's obviously aspect in the fifth house as well. So they're very desire-based about romance. They love romance, children, dating, partying, because they're creative. You know, it's aspect in third and fifth house. These two houses are very artistic, very creative. So they literally want to have that, want to have children, and want to have lots of skill sets in order to enable their children to have a good footing in life. They possibly could dabble in things to do with investments and things like that, depending if Jupiter is a good planet for you. It's not necessarily for every sort of ascendant. And clearly they want to be married, be in a relationship, and it can give them more than one relationship because of the nature of Jupiter. So let's see. So it's just like, as I said, you know, they could get a lot of joy from their elder sibling. And they could have more than one elder sibling too. And they just naturally, they get a lot of joy from being with their friends. Their friends make them joyful, and they also can put a smile on their friends too. The circle of their friends can be very, very important to them, very creative. They will be not necessarily master of all of them, but they do dabble in a lot of things. So they will have a lot of skill sets, if you like, and as a result of that, they can advise people really well, because then fifth house is being an advisor, being a counselor, something like that. So you will find that they could actually help their friends during tough times because of that too. And they attract good friends, and they can obviously gain through them too, and because 11th house is gaining, so if Jupiter is a good planet for you and everything, so you can gain friends, gain skills, gain children, gain good education, and gain a really nice partner too. Not necessarily all at the same time, because that's you know, also because third house, you have to put effort into everything, and desire houses, you know, like 11th house and everything else, they get better with time. We actually realize sometimes we have to rein in our kind of like desires. So the more they do for, they could have a really nice communication skill. They could actually be quite good singers. In that sense, but they can chat for hours, chat. So you have to actually, particularly if the third house ends up being like, for example, in Libra, you have to really just like rein it in, because they could be a bit preaching with that. So, but generally speaking, a nice setting. They're quite romantic. They could be quite childlike in that they have that like happy-go-lucky feeling about that, and they want all of that for everybody around them too. They want to be happy, but they also want their friends to be happy. And Jupiter also blesses their thinking process, their mind as well. So they're going to be like blessed with like positivity in that sense. Even I think if it's a bad planet for you, the aspects are quite blessing. So even if you got a difficult moon, if you got this, it's going to help you with that. They could literally just like, even when they get really down, they could put a song on and they have a little dance and that's it. It's just going to be fine. So the thinking process is very much blessed with that. Oh, apologies for that. And they literally, they can be very much like want to know lots of information too. So they just, if there's something going on like a festival or something, they tell their friends and they try and get a group of, they like everybody to have fun, not just for themselves. They obviously love all the academic, they like learning. These people can be like lifetime learners too, if it is in your natal chart. So so it just 11th house is gains, so gains of information, gains of knowledge, they gain information. It just comes easy to them, they just can process it quite nicely, particularly if Jupiter is in a good way. And they do invest a lot of, not necessarily, I wouldn't say money, but they like to invest a lot of energy and into the children. Generally, their children and youngsters, just they see them as a positive view of life. So it just gives you a happy heart, having this, that kind of thing. So yeah, just generally speaking, it's probably better on the aspects than it is on where it's sitting, but it does give you gains. It definitely gives you opportunities, gives you positivities in that sense, and obviously a nice relationship to go with that. And their partner could also be part of their group of friends too. Right, let's have a look at the ascendants. For Aries ascendant, Jupiter is obviously their 9th house and 12th house ruler. When it goes in the 11th house, these people can have very well-traveled, well-connected, influential, cultured friends. And they could gain through that because this creates a really nice done yoga. And their friends could be foreign friends as well, because 12th house ruler Jupiter. They could have lots of friends in different countries too, different cultures for that reason. And because this is aspect in their 3rd house, they could speak other languages too. It definitely gives you foreign friends. And if you get married, your partner could also be, so you can meet them at the educational place, whilst you're being educated abroad, and then they become your partner. And Taurus ascendant, for them 8th and 11th house ruler. So this is the Jupiter that is in own sign. Pisces 11th house is, so they could be like they could have secret friends or astrology friends who like the occult. They could, that kind of thing. And for them, they could have like secret investments, secret like stash of money. They could all of a sudden they gain money through like inheritance, taxes, that kind of thing. But there's definitely going to be ups and downs in their friend circles, in their groups of friends. There could be like a secret enemy amongst them. They could because he also rules 5th house, and so they could have difficulties, or suddenly get pregnant when you're not expecting it, or suddenly meet their partner, that kind of thing. But Jupiter is also aspecting their 7th house is Scorpio. So their partner, because it's also, aspecting that there's something secret about the partner, or as I said, they could meet the partner secretly before they reveal them to other friends. For Gemini Ascendant. Gemini Ascendant, this is like 7th and 10th house ruler. When it's in the 11th house, Jupiter is in a friendly sign, which is Aries. So they will have very adventurous, very what do you call it? They could be very, because this is a sign that really makes you really be very focused and go for things. They could have very friends that they do endeavors such as like they could go trekking, they could go mountain climbing, skiing, that kind of thing, that sort of thing. They could have like daredevil friends, and so they could have the also their friends, like they could meet their partner through their friendship group. And because from their Jupiter is also aspecting and blessing the 7th house, it blesses obviously their partner. Could be somebody that obviously from the same, they could meet the person that's through work, they could work with their friends, they could gain that relationship through working with the person. So all of those things to do with work and partners sort of goes hand in hand. But Jupiter actually aspecting your 7th house, it rules that anyway, so really protects that. And this is your public image as yourself, for your work, and as a couple. So this could be a highly respected couple, bit of a power couple. They will obviously be quite religious too, because this is all very educated, very well travelled, very very cultured couple. It gives you very high amount of respect from others and their groups of friends. Then for Cancer Ascendant, Jupiter in the 11th house will be Jupiter in Taurus. So Jupiter rules for them 6th and 9th house. When it's in 11th house, it's not really in good condition here. And Jupiter there, it's 6th house ruler in the 11th house. So they could also have some arguments and discord with their friends. They could also, 6th house is competitive sports. So they could have friends that they do that kind of jobs with. And they could, it's also 9th house ruler in the 11th house, but it does get spoiled a little bit because the 6th house thing. So it could just be that, their education and all of that, they gain, and they could also have some debts through that. But through groups of friends, they could definitely have some debts, have some enemies, some obstacles in, that some of their friends are not necessarily of, that you got to be really careful with these people. So make sure that you don't lend them money. This is a situation where you can lose the friend, lose the money too. But there could be discord, that kind of thing. But it could just be that they just do competitive sporty stuff, that kind of thing. And there could also be friends that you all do things, community work together in order to help your service your community. Then for Leo Ascendant, this will be Jupiter that rules 5th and 8th house. And when it's in the 11th house for Leo Ascendant, Jupiter will be in unfriendly signs. So it will be in 11th house for them is Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter doesn't do so well there, but luckily from there is aspect in what would be the 5th house own sign. So that's great. So this will be really protecting things to do with children, education, academic education, investments and things like that. Because Jupiter for them rules 8th house, so they could suddenly gain money, suddenly gain, do like a speculative thing. They could either lose or they could gain through that. So that kind of thing will be very much the theme. But they could, as I said, they could gain through taxes, or they could have a tax rebate, or suddenly have a big tax bill. They could also deal with things such as they could gain children, but they could also have some difficulties in having children. Because Jupiter also is, they could have like a secret romance with somebody, that kind of thing, But yeah, so it's not necessarily in good condition, but it does definitely they could be really good advisors for investments with their friends, tax advice, you know, because 8th house, their friends could gain from that quite a lot too. So for Virgo Ascendant, this is their 4th and 7th house ruler. This will be Jupiter, which is exalted. So they could gain from their mum, from homes, from land. You know, this is going to be pretty amazing, isn't it? So from their Jupiter, it's going to be you know, protecting the 7th house. So in terms of relationships, partnerships are very much blessed, and they gain quite a lot through that, to gain of a home, gain of relationship, and protecting those two. And also gives one really good gains from work, you know, because this is 11th house, 2nd house is from the 10th house. So whatever work they do, they gain really well through that. For Libra Ascendant, 10th house is... 11th house is Jupiter in Leo. So Jupiter in Leo will be like somebody who has got Jupiter for them rules 3rd and 6th house. So when he goes into the 11th house, you could see that there could be some issues with their groups of friends, with their big networks, also, you know, their natural friends and colleagues and siblings and things. So there could be some discord there. They could get themselves into debt with things too. So they just got to be just more careful with you know, things like that. But generally speaking, though, Jupiter is not in poor condition there. But what it does from there, it aspects the 3rd house. So this person could be quite good at giving good advice, well spoken, because it's own sign, so it protects the 3rd house stuff, and they're really good at learning. They want to educate themselves. You know, they could be literally spending a lot of time learning and getting their skill sets, and that kind of thing. So their close friends will benefit from the knowledge and wisdom of them. But you know, Jupiter rules the 6th house, so you just got to be just very careful that your friends are true friends, and you don't get into arguments with them, because you know, just Jupiter can be quite preachy when it rules. For you know, just the nature of Jupiter, you know, it can be like, just because your speech or the way you kind of can be quite forceful with your opinions, sometimes that could give you make your friends kind of like pull back a little bit. So, you know, that kind of thing. Jupiter is not always good. It's a little bit naughty. So, but it does protect your 3rd house. So it just means that even if you do fall out with them, you're able to actually articulate yourself really well, very intelligently, and, you know, make up again. So that kind of, but your friends your groups will be highly respected, quite influential friends as well, because of the nature of Leo. So they will be of higher status friends. So for Scorpio Ascendant, Jupiter rules 2nd and 5th house. When it goes in the 11th house, Jupiter will be an unfriendly sign because it'll be in Virgo. However, it's aspect in the 5th house. So these people could be very good, because Virgo is very good at actually getting the detailed information in to be able to help the situation. So just through friends and just getting the right contacts, they could actually make a big difference to their speculations and everything. And Jupiter, because it rules the 2nd house, goes into the 11th house, immediately creates a couple of really good dhan yogas anyway. So this is going to be a Jupiter that's going to make you money. But it will make you money because you'll be very good and discerning about detail, reading information, and seeing, you know, sifting through some really, you know, information that's, you know, and your friends will help you gain through that as well. And the 5th house is protected too, which really protects your education, children, things like that. For Sagittarius Ascendant, this will be a 1st and 4th house ruler in the 11th house. So it obviously creates nice dhan yoga. Not in really good condition, however, it's going to be good because you know, it's going to be a Jupiter group of friends that are very kind of sociable. Your social environment is very important to you. Your friends are have got good, they're quite artistic, quite creative, they're quite sociable. And first and fourth house rule, and that makes you happy. You know, your friends, your groups of friends makes you happy. And yeah, and you create your own luck with them, your own opportunities to gain from that. And obviously aspect in the 11th house of natural zodiac, which is your third house. So your friends, your groups of friends are highly aware people. They're very socially aware, socially you know, they the whole community of your friends are very dear to your heart, if you like. So they're very aware people. You know, the friends that you choose, they are highly aware of the social situation, and they, you know, if you go out with your friends, they're sort of people that they're having fun, but they like everybody else to have fun too. So if they're dancers, they go out and there's nice music, and there are people they can see that they want to join them. You know, they do invite them in, so they're quite friendly people. For Capricorn Ascendant, the 11th house will be Jupiter. Jupiter is 3rd and 12th house ruler. When it goes into the 11th house, it's in Scorpio. So Jupiter likes Scorpios, friendly with Mars. However, you could have losses through your friends, or you could choose. You need to use more discernment and be more cautious about your friend groups. But then the more you kind of get the courage, the more you work at it, put effort into your friendship groups, the more you gain through that too, and have fun with them. Because Jupiter will be aspect in your third house anyway. So it's the whole point of this is that the more you put yourself out there, because Capricorn could be a little bit scared of doing that, you know, not so brave and not very good at communicating expressing themselves. So the more you get to do that, express yourself, etc., the better friends and the more you gain from it. And you'll have some foreign friends, and maybe you do something like, for example, join a group that is they speak foreign languages, because 3rd house and 12th house ruler in the 11th house, that's how you gain your friends, and that's how you make the 3rd house and 11th house more concrete because of that. And for Aquarius Ascendant, Jupiter obviously rules 2nd and 11th house, so it's like a money-making machine for you, or planet. When it's in 11th house, so it's highly strong for you. It's in own sign, which is 11th house is Sagittarius, Jupiter in Sagittarius, nice and strong. So this is going to give you a really good circle of friends, and they're going to be very influential friends. Through them you gain, and it kind of makes you gain money, and you don't necessarily have to work really hard at it, because these are people who work smartly, not necessarily hard. And they know how to save their money, and they know how to look after their family through that, to look after their friends, and they got their friends back and their friends have got their back. It's going to work really well. Jupiter in the 11th house for Pisces Ascendant will be Jupiter that's debilitated in Capricorn, so it's 1st and 10th house ruler in the 11th house. It does create Raj and Dan yogas, but they'll be quite weak in that it gets better with time, because 11th house does get better with time. So they have to learn to be, because these people could be working really hard, not necessarily working smart, and they probably don't choose very good friends. They choose friends that are more materialistic and more ambitious, and their friends could just tread on them on the way up to gain their promotions and stuff. So they need to just stand back and really be more discerning and make better choices, because they got this desire to do well, and they could just, because of that, just invite really wrong people into their life. And yeah, with time that does get better. So that's it for the Ascendant. So I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.